everyone. I'd like to welcome you again to another life story coming to you from Lifestoriesworldwide. And first of all, I would like to wish you all a very happy and blessed Christmas. May you know that Jesus, who's the reason for the season, may you have peace in your heart over this Christmas time. We bring you stories from all over the world, and today it's from the United Kingdom. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, StreamYard, and you can also watch us on our YouTube channel, Lifestoriesworldwide.com. That's probably one of the easiest places to watch us. We bring you stories of people who've gone through all types of challenges and how they've come through and found a transformation in their lives. Our story today is from South Wales, where we have a lovely couple. We have Gavin and Ceri Duffy, who came from a life of desperation and addiction and hopelessness into a life of abundance and freedom. They have a bi-vocational job now. They are working for a homeless charity, but also ministering on the 2 campuses of Bethel Church down in South Wales. So it's a real joy to welcome Gavin and Ceri to share their story. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, thank you, Al. Yeah, it's a privilege to be able to share our story and what God's done in our lives. And the scripture I want to bring is Mark 9:23. If you can believe, all things are possible to the one who believes. Now, 8 years ago, I found myself in a humanly impossible situation. I was bound in addiction. I was paralyzed in depression. I was lost. I was broken. I was hopeless. I was having demonic visitations. I was having nightmares. I was suicidal. I was at the end of myself. I'd been to church for 13 years on and off. I believed in a God, but I didn't know him. It took me to come to a place where I lost everything. And I ended up in a place called Bethel, which is a Christian rehabilitation center. And that's when life changed. That's when I encountered the living God. It was a men's house, and there was, I'd say, about 20 people in the house at the time, and I found it extremely hard. I couldn't be around people without being on drugs. I couldn't talk to people. I struggled in social aspects, and it was just extremely difficult. And I'd been there for about 3 months, and I thought to myself, oh, this is too hard. I can't do this. And I found myself going to the field at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I cried out to God. I was like, God, help me. And it was in that place where I believe that I encountered the living God. And it didn't change instantly my circumstances, but there was a process, and I knew that something was different. And over a matter of months, I started experiencing the rivers of living water. I started experiencing things that drugs couldn't give you. Tablets couldn't give you. Alcohol couldn't give you. There was this love. There was this peace that I never experienced before. And it changed everything. And it just, it changed me from the broken man that I was to the man that I am today. And I give honor to the God that came and seeked me, saved me, even when I chose another path, even when I was walking in the opposite direction. He chose to come into my situation.
What was your situation like before you met Jesus?
It was hopeless. I just couldn't really do anything. I was just so paralyzed. I was just so broken, as I've said. I just I just couldn't function in society. I couldn't hold down a job. I was going in and out of work. I was just trapped. You know, I spent a lot of time isolating myself because I struggled to be around people. But God came and He changed me, you know. And today, you know, I work in a homeless charity, as Alan mentioned, and I'm helping people I once used to do drugs with. I'm helping people that are battling the same demons that I was battling. And I get to show them that there's hope. You know, there is light at the end of the tunnel. That nothing is impossible. You know, and it's just a privilege to be positioned where I see people all the time that have been written off by society. Been labelled with this disorder, with that disorder. But with God, we can take the labels off. You know, and I get my label from God, that I'm a child of God, that I'm a son, that carries a daughter. And that's where I find freedom, is knowing that God sent His Son into the world to save a sinner like myself. And it was in Bethel where I surrendered my life, where I repented and chose to walk in the opposite direction. And it's the best decision I've ever made. I couldn't ask for the life I got now. It's only the hand of God that I'm able to hold a job down. I'm able to do what I do. It's only through the grace of God.
So Gavin and I actually met in Bethel around 2017.
Yeah.
And God divinely made our paths cross in that place. However, we already went to the same primary school. We already went to the same secondary school. We lived in the same small little town. But it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, early 30s, where I actually met Gavin, where our paths crossed again in Birmingham, of all places, which is nowhere near where we live. So we really do believe that God brought us together for a purpose. I'll tell you a bit about my story and how I ended up in the ministry of Bethel as well. So when I was a little girl, I was brought up by my grandparents. My mum, bless her, she was very young when she had me, out of wedlock, and my dad was actually married to somebody else. So it was all a bit, it was a bit of a not a great situation to be born into. My dad went on to have two other children, who were my half brother and half sister, and he brought those children up with his wife, and I stayed with my mum for a bit, and then I ended up with my nan and grandpa. And having that kind of broken family relationship from such a young age really left a mark on me, and I really didn't know who I was. I was so lost. My identity was really broken, and I didn't know who I was. I wasn't rooted in anything at all. So I went through school, and I started to become quite rebellious. I was a bit of a party girl, had lots of friends, started experimenting with drugs and alcohol, a lot of relationships, just searching for this love that obviously I didn't have from my own biological father at the time. And it left such a void in my life. I didn't realize how much it was affecting me. I just thought I was being a normal teenager at that point, but I was so broken. I would just go out and party with my friends, but I didn't know when to stop. I really had no limits. And I was kind of on self-destruct, and this escalated throughout my secondary school years. I was quite a good pupil, actually. I was quite intelligent in school, so I didn't have to revise and put much effort in, which was really good. However, my lifestyle was completely going off the rails. By the time I got to university, I was known to be a party girl. People used to come to me for drugs if they wanted me to get something for them. I was the person to go to. So it wasn't a great reputation to have, really, looking back. But at the time, I thought I was living the dream. Little did I know I'd get more broken and broken as time went on. So my mum became unwell. She had a bit of a breakdown, and she got diagnosed with bipolar. And back then, it wasn't as common as it is now. There wasn't much awareness about it. So for me and my family to kind of deal with that was extremely hard. And she got sectioned quite a few times. And I just started to go even further off the rails because it was really painful for me to see my mum like that. I felt guilty. I felt like I couldn't do anything to help her. So I ended up taking more drugs and getting in more of a bad situation myself. So somebody introduced me to heroin. So I ended up going from taking all the party drugs to the hard drugs then, like heroin, crack cocaine. Before I knew it, I was fully addicted, and it really consumed my life to the point where I couldn't study anymore. I had to resit my third year of uni like twice, and I still couldn't concentrate to get the grades that I needed to get, because my mind was so... it was all over the shop, to be honest. I couldn't focus on anything. I was so down because I couldn't help my mum, and these drugs were just really messing me up. So it got worse after that. I ended up losing my home. I lived in Cardiff, in the capital city. I had my own house, and I couldn't manage it financially, and everything just started to become really uncontrollable in my life. So ended up selling the house, ended up moving up from my grandparents up to mid Wales to try and get away from the drug culture in Cardiff. And I found drugs. It doesn't matter where I went, I found them. And it was my way of coping. It was my way of trying to escape from the reality of life. And I was still trying to find out who I was as well. I still didn't have a clue who am I. So time went on, and I ended up moving from place to place. I got in a relationship with somebody who was involved in the criminal justice system a lot, and so I therefore got involved with the criminal justice system, got in lots of trouble with the police. My mental health was deteriorating rapidly at the time, and the chemist and the GP were just putting me on a lot of prescription medication. So I was on all these different antidepressants, which I believe were making me more depressed, to be honest. It was like putting a plaster on a gunshot wound, because I was so broken, and I was just trying to mask everything with medication, and I was self-prescribing with street substances as well. So I was in this really bad relationship. Ended up finding out that I was pregnant, and I was already 5.5 months pregnant when I found out, which is a long way into a pregnancy. But because I was taking so many substances, you couldn't even tell that I was pregnant. It was so sad. There were domestic violence agencies trying to get me help and support, because this relationship was really destructive and pretty toxic. And to be fair, I just knew deep down that I didn't really have a chance of looking after this child. I felt like I couldn't give this child anything, couldn't even look after myself. And it just made me more and more depressed, knowing deep down that I could never provide for this little one. And I really wanted my life to just change so much. I couldn't even remember what my life was like before. I used to have really good friends. I used to have, I was going places. I was going to university. I was driven. I wanted to be an accountant. I had all these goals in my life. But I felt, looking back, I know it was the enemy. He was trying to steal, kill, and destroy all the good things in my life from such a young age. But at the time, I didn't know the Lord, and I didn't have any sort of revelation of that. So I carried on a path of self-destruction. My little girl was born, and I ended up having to sign adoption papers for her to be adopted, because I couldn't. Yeah, I did try going to the contact centre and being there for her, but I wouldn't have been a good mum at that point. So that was my breaking point. I ended up in more trouble with the police for various drug-related offences, which wasn't me at all. I wasn't, I really wasn't a criminal, but actually in that lifestyle, it's so easy to fall into that trap. It goes hand in hand with the lifestyle I was living. And I remember the father of my child, he ended up going to jail. So he was out of the picture, gave me a bit of a chance to get my life sorted, but I was still so broken. It kind of didn't take long for me to realize that it wasn't him, it was me. I could blame him all I wanted, but actually it was me. I had to really search myself and start dealing with what was going on inside of me. So I ended up breaching my suspended prison sentence that I was on for various offences. I breached it, and they called me into magistrate's court, and my solicitor actually said, you need to pack a bag, because you're probably not going to get out of this. You're probably going to end up going straight to prison. So that, for me, mentally, I really struggled with that, and I just knew deep down that I wouldn't last in prison. I was so low. I'd lost my little girl. I had nothing to live for. All my friends, I distanced myself from them when I got into the harder drugs, so they weren't in my life. I just felt so lonely and so suicidal. I did actually, I tried to overdose a number of times because I was so down and so low. But at this point, I was in the magistrate's court, and they told me to pack a bag. So I was mentally preparing myself to go to prison. I went into the cubicle of the toilets in the magistrate's court, and something inside me told me to cry out to God. So I did. I cried out, and I said, Lord, if you're real, please help me. I was just so desperate. I was like, please get me out of this situation. And I don't think I've prayed so hard. Well, I'd never prayed up to that point, but since, I don't know if I've ever prayed that desperately in my life. And I walked back into the courtroom, and the magistrates found me guilty. So it really wasn't looking good. I stood up, and they turned around and they said, Miss Gayward, which was my name at the time, they said, we find you guilty. However, we're going to give you an opportunity. They gave me an opportunity to go to this ministry, Bethel, and to get my life sorted out. And do you know what? I just knew that my prayer had been answered. I knew it was just impossible. Like,